This is a conversation with Jay Prince, the Houston record label executive, founder of the legendary Rap-A-Lot Records. This is conversation is a little bit different than the other ones because this is actually recorded in 2018. This is October 17th, 2018. Yeah, so around that time, October 2018, I started a podcast that I barely, just didn't really commit to. Recorded just a handful of episodes, never really put it out or promoted it or anything like that. Just didn't really go too hard with it. You'll even notice the audio is just not as good. But yeah, so Jay Prince, I kind of want to give a little bit of background to, how did I even end up sitting in a car that was running in the backseat with Jay Prince having this conversation. So I grew up in Houston, but I grew up in Alief, which is on the southwest side of Houston. And Jay Prince, even though obviously he's known all around Houston, he's more so known. He's from the Fifth Ward, which is closer to downtown, closer in the city, than Alief is. And so, like, I didn't know about him like that growing up. I mean, I think my barber might have told a couple, a handful of stories, but nothing like that. Like, my barber was always telling stories about more like, DJ Screw and ESG and the South Side and Swisher House and, like those kind of stories. Well, I guess Swisher House is the north side, but just a screwed up clique. That was my barber. Shout out T, legendary Alief legend. So I became more so aware of Jay Prince in like 2015 and onward. So around 2014, 2015, I was really into these artists called the Sauce Twins. So nowadays you know about Sauce Walka, but he was in this group called the Sauce Twins with this guy Sancho Saucy, who I love Sauce Walka, a great rapper. At that time, I felt like Sancho was the better rapper. Like, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But shout out Sauce Walka, shout out Sancho. So they were part of this group called the Sauce Twins, and I heard about them because I know Maxo Cream. I'm a big fan of Maxo, and there was this song on this like compilation album. The song was called "Don't Do That," and it had this artist Beat King, and it was Beat King, Maxo Cream, Mo Gang, Sauce Twins, and Double H Town. And I heard the Sauce Twins, and I was like, yo, this is just fire. I hadn't really heard anything like it. And so, yeah, I got into the Sauce Twins and just downloaded their mixtapes. And they were being managed by Jazz Prince around that time. And so in sometime in 2015, Steve Francis, Houston legend, got his chain snatched at a concert, at a Sauce Twins concert. The concert, I think, was at Warehouse Live. But yeah, I mean, the chain snatching, I want to say it seems like it was early March 2015. So this is March 2015. And so Steve Francis gets his chain snatched at a Sauce Twins concert. And Jay Prince is like, yo, Steve Francis is a friend of mine. And that chain is in Jay Prince's hands so fast. And, like, especially nowadays, I think with, like, maybe if you, in the streets in the 60s or 70s or the 80s, you think about people living by some sort of code. But I think, in 2015, the streets probably more ruthless, maybe. And so just to see that Jay Prince commanded that kind of, whether you want to call it respect or fear, but that, he said, this person is a friend of mine, and that chain came right back in his hands. Because a lot of the times nowadays, people get their chain snatched and they might buy it back on the low and things like that. But Jay Prince was just like, yeah, this dude's a friend of mine. And that chain came right back. And so that was really intriguing. Just to see that. And then in 2016, I read this book, and it's funny because I'm not a huge, I read a lot of books in my childhood, Judy Blume, Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, all that. Louis, I don't know, I guess Louis Satcher, Sideways Stories from Wayside High, all that stuff. But, from high school and college onward, I was not really a big, voracious reader of books. But Julia Beverly, shout out her, by the way, she is this white woman who founded Ozone magazine, and the Ozone Awards and all this. Is if you don't know about that, it's a legendary Southern hip hop magazine. And it's kind of funny because people talk about, this is a whole deeper conversation, but people talk about cultural appropriation and things like that. You have people in hip hop who aren't black, and obviously it's kind of a black art form. You have like DJ Vlad and Adam 22, and then a lot of executives and stuff with all the stuff that Kanye has said and things. But Julie is somebody who that. She's white and she has done a ton for the culture. Yeah, so I think, and also, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but the whole cultural appropriation thing, like, one of the reasons rappers have been able to make so much money is because their fans have been white. So you don't really want to gatekeep certain things. Like, certain things, the more consumers, kind of the better. I mean, you don't want to get watered down. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So anyway, Julia Beverly wrote this book called Sweet Jones, Pimp C's Trill Life Story. And it's just this amazing book, well researched, a lot of cool documents, and it's about Pimp C and his life, but she gets into Jay Prince a lot. And it was the first time I'd read some of these details about Jay Prince, about his life in the streets, about, who he was. And, I think it has some of these sort of urban, you want to make urban legends, real, fake, whatever, but like stories about how, maybe like the one about how allegedly, I don't want to get sued, allegedly Master P, I guess although statute of limitations would be up, but, allegedly Master P and some people kidnapped Pimp C, pistol whipped them, tied him up and all this stuff. And then they called allegedly Jay Prince to get permission to kill him. And Jay Prince was like, no, almost like a Steve Francis situation all over again, where it was like, no, Steve Francis was like, no, this person's a friend of mine. With Pimp C, I think it was more like, I'm doing business with this person, so don't kill them. And just, the idea that, because it evokes kind of like these old mafia bosses where it's like, I have to get permission to do this deed. And also, I respect the person enough to ask them permission, or fear them enough to ask them permission. So just, reading all these stories. And that book was so, I don't know what I was going through. That book was so just moving to me that I bought this stupid G-Wagon when I moved to LA, and I wanted to put RIP Pimp C on the license plates because I love that book so much. And, if you live in California, I don't know about other states, you live in California, you only have seven characters, like RIPPIMPC. You only have 7 characters on your license plate maximum. And obviously that's 8 characters, but I was going to make the P in RIP and the first P in Pimp the same P. So I solved that problem. But then I got a letter back from the state saying, hey, you can't put Pimp on a license plate because it's like lewd or lascivious or something like that. So I'm like, all right, I'll put RIP Chad. And I'm thinking I'm going to be driving around LA with RIP Chad. People are going to think I'm like mourning like my, like my uncle or something. Like no one really knows who Chad is. Like in Houston, I feel like people would be like, oh, Chad, like Chad Butler, Pimp C's, legal name. But, and maybe not even Houston too. Maybe I'm overestimating how much people care about Pimp C. But, then I was like, oh, RIP Chad. And I was like, wait, what if I just put UGK? Well, I was like, oh, what about UGK for life? Like UGK, the number 4, and then LYF or something. And I was like, wait, what if I just put UGK? I was like, no, well, somebody's got to have UGK on license plates already. But no, it was available because, California, they don't appreciate, just amazing artistry of UGK. And just by the way, go back and really listen to their first few albums. Ride and Dirty is like a legitimate classic, like a hit, not just a Southern classic, like a hip hop classic. Anyway, so in that book, I had a lot of stories about Jay Prince, and just these sort of kind of stories that probably hadn't been told before. So I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting. So that's 2016, and in 2016, Bob Arum also he went on the show Highly Questionable with Bomani Jones and Dan Le Batard, and he tells the story of basically, Jay Prince used to manage Floyd Mayweather. And then let's say Floyd Mayweather had a fight in June and Jay Prince's contract for managing Floyd Mayweather was up in June. Floyd Mayweather basically moved a fight, let's say to July or something, so that he wouldn't have to pay Jay Prince. And Jay Prince wanted his money. So Floyd went, this is a story that Bob Arum told, so I'm not snitching on anyone. But Floyd Mayweather goes to Bob Arum and says, hey, Jay Prince wants his money. And Bob Arum, according to the story that Bob Arum told, says, okay, I'll give him a letter of credit. And Floyd says, Jay Prince don't do no letters of credit. And, Bob Arum tells the story of that some people, he says, with or without the knowledge of Jay Prince, come to, Floyd's studio and, beat people up, and there's blood in the carpets and all this stuff. Also, just Jay Prince is, the UGK is the Scott group. If you really go back, Ride and Dirty's fire, Too Hard to Swallow is fire, super tight, but especially Ride and Dirty and Dirty Money, those are amazing. Anyway, just the idea that, and the funny thing was Bob Arum, even in telling the story, would not speak poorly about Jay Prince. He said, hey, I've done business with him. He's a great guy, this and that. Like, he wouldn't speak poorly about this man. So it just, again, shows you that level of respect that's commanded. And so I'm just like, wow, this dude's just, this guy's very intriguing. And, as a writer, you love characters, you love interesting stories. Whether to be inspired by it, to even adapt to your, to a project like a TV show or a movie or something. You've obviously seen what 50 Cent has done with stories of like BMF. Yeah. So anyway, and then also there's this video that goes viral in 2016 also. I think Jay Prince Jr. throws this birthday bash and Jay Prince is coming out on the rooftop and he like somebody's walking behind him with a shotgun, a towel over a shotgun. And Jay Prince waves the dude off, just kind of fall back. And he waves him off just so casually, like imagine and people would say this on Twitter, so it's not original, but people, imagine a basketball player waving somebody off for like ISO. Like that's how he waves, or like that's how he waved off this goon basically, or henchman or whatever, security person who was walking behind him with a shotgun, like, just fall back. And so again, I feel like, every couple of years, it seems like Jay Prince would go viral on Twitter with people being like, oh, who is this dude? And, he's connected to all these people in music, and he's this legend that people look up to and fear and respect. And then, there are these threads that'll go viral, and, people talking about him and stuff. And so I met him, first met him at Drake's birthday party in 2016. And then just even around that time too, I guess I didn't really see, like, the thing that really stuck with me is that in the Summer 16 tour, when they stopped in Houston, I had, backstage or whatever, access, and I saw Jay Prince just walking, and he'd walk through, these, if you ever been backstage at like a arena, like a Toyota Center or something like that, there are these hallways and all these tunnels and stuff almost, and he'd be walking through and have like 40 people behind him. And if you think about mob ties, like the idea of a mob, I think mob ties is Jay Prince Jr.'s entity. But if you think about the idea of a mob, it's literally like a mob of people walking behind him, and they were all like 50 years old, his age, like 50, 40 something. This is 2016, so 40 something, 50 something, with Rap-A-Lot chains. And I remember looking at him like, yo, like, imagine if, let's say each of those chains costs. Also, I guess Jay Prince right now, as I'm recording this, is 58. So if this is Summer 16, I can't do basic math. Like 52. So imagine people, 50-year-old, uncles basically, and they've got these Rap-A-Lot chains walking in a deep mob behind them. I remember being like, yo, there's 40 people here. Each of them has a Rap-A-Lot chain. Let's say each of these chains is worth $5,000. That's $200,000 just in Rap-A-Lot chains. Like that's, and like now I look back and it's like, is $200,000 really that much? Like it is a lot of money for anybody, but divided by 40 people, maybe it's not that much, but it just seems so like a real movement, like a real mob. And it really just made me think about all those things that I'd read and seen in Julia's book and just online. It's like, yo, this guy really, there's nothing that he shies away from. If in his own book that he came out with later in 2018, he said that, he made $1 million in the streets before he ever made money, in music. And I remember, and even that, I think that there's a reason that there's this tie between hip hop and the streets, because if you're, a lot of white folks just come for money. And people don't realize that to be an artist costs a lot of money, studio time, the opportunity cost of like not working, right? So just even being in the studio means you're not doing a 9 to 5. And if you think about, the best example probably is when Young Thug when Young Thug, and hopefully his case gets resolved in a positive way for him. But when Young Thug was talking about how he would pay Lil Baby to stay out the streets, like that's our version of having a rich uncle, basically. Or not, I don't want to say our, but like that's for a lot of black people, the version of having a rich uncle. So there's a reason why you see the streets and music sometimes for lots of reasons, right? But one of those reasons is because you need some sort of support. The art, the relationship between art and capital is very deep. Anyway, so, just seeing him in the, rocking around, just mobbing in this manner backstage was just like, wow, like this is, I remember somebody once said, Rap-A-Lot is like if BMF never got indicted. And then it made me be like, wow, that might be kind of true. Like these people who are 50-something years old, all Rap-A-Lot chains, all serious looking dudes. Like, not to say that you should stereotype people based on how they look, but they weren't really, not that they were unfriendly to me, but they weren't the most approachable looking people. Although they are very respectful and I haven't never had any issues with them. But so I think that left a big impression, just seeing him, this mob of people, like a family, like just really deep at that Summer 16 tour. And then the next thing I remember also was another interaction that left an impression. I remember, so 2016, Drake had thrown this private Halloween party, and Jazz Prince's birthday is also is like Halloween. It's Halloween, or if it's not Halloween, it's like around Halloween. I'm pretty sure it is Halloween though. And so Jazz had this, was hosting this party also in LA, and Baby J and just different. Like his little brother, Baby J, was also, I guess Jazz's birthday is, first of all, RIP Takeoff. So yeah, it's around Halloween, if not exactly Halloween. Anyway, so yeah, it's I guess Jay Prince's birthday is also Halloween. But anyway, so we I guess Jazz is like October 30th, and then Jay Prince is October 31st. Not to dox where it's like it's public. But anyway, so I had gone to the thing that Jazz was hosting, and then I was driven to Drake's party, and Baby J and some other people were with me. And we get there, and like some of these parties, even if you're on the list, even if you're supposed to be there, it can be a hassle sometimes getting in. And I remember they were kind of giving Baby J a hard time at the door. And, I don't know if it was Drake himself who came out. I can't remember because it was obviously a while ago. So I can't remember if it was Drake himself who came out, but it was one of those things where either Drake himself was like, nah, he's good, or it was, Drake basically told somebody like, yo, like these people, like you can't, like whoever is with Baby J, like Baby J and whoever he's with, they're good. Like don't, like almost like being insulted that they were made to wait for even a moment at one of his parties. So just remind, again, like the kind of power that Prince last name carries. And, Drake's obviously rapped about it on different songs. Prince, I carry that last name. That name stays on me like brand names. Whatever, I think in whatever song that was, I think War. And even just like Money in the Grave, where he talks about, where's the Junior, Jazzy, Baby J, all that stuff. So anyway, like, just seeing like the power, like the respect that intergenerationally, this camera is like sort of like the respect intergenerationally that name carries. So yeah, I think that, that was just all these moments, right? And then in 2018, I brought Jay Prince to come speak at Harvard. He was doing the tour with his book, The Art and Science of Respect, and I reached out through Julia, and we arranged for him to come speak at Harvard around the same, because Drake's whatever the Scorpion tour, the Migos was called. I think Aubrey and the Three Migos, R.I.P. Takeoff again. Tour was stopping in Boston. I was like, oh hey, like we'll just two birds one stone. You'll be in Boston, whatever. And that also happened to be when Meek and Drake squashed the beef. And I remember actually I was at that show because it was around the same time, and I remember backstage before the show, I think it was like Jazz or June. I think it was either Jazz or Junior. I can't remember, but it was like, oh, Meek's here, and I thought, oh, Meek's like that's kind of is Meek here? Support is Meek gonna whatever, and it turned out Meek was actually coming out, and then he played ping pong after. Anyway, so that I brought him to speak at Harvard. That was really dope. I think that meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to the students at Harvard. I spoke to the Harvard Black Men's Forum, and it was a really, because so I've been in some of those events in college that can kind of end up being falling flat, but people really showed out, really came, and because Jay Prince, obviously his book, his story is pretty legendary. And then I also remember he in I want to say what it was, Miami. Drake had this private dinner at Prom 112, and I got to talk to really chat with Junior there, not Junior, but Jay Prince there. But yeah, I think that just his story is really interesting. Just to give context for this podcast about some of the questions that I'm asking. This was around the time that so Jay Prince has kind of gone viral again because coinciding with his book, there's a whole idea that he had told Drake, don't respond to this Pusha, story of adding on. And so, one of the questions I ask is, do you think beef can go too far? Or basically, is everything, not that beef can go too far, because obviously it can, but is there such a thing as too far when it comes to a diss song? Because people had said, the whole idea of Pusha T rapping about OVO 40's MS and just, I think, multiple sclerosis, and just the whole, sick, 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 tick, tick, tick line, that was too far. And I think Drake definitely felt that was too far. He didn't want to rap anymore. He wanted to, it wasn't about music anymore at that point. So I asked him that question. Also, another interesting thing is I remember I asked him about like kind of the intertwining between music and the streets, because, he has talked about how, someone had reached out to him or kind of mediate or squash the Suge and Puffy beef, and he said it was just too far gone. And then he said he wanted to sign Pac, but Suge got to him first. And he's also told a story. Jay Prince has told a story of like being in LA around the time that, like right before, like when Diddy and Big were out there, and hearing basically leaving town. I think he was on a bus. Jay Prince was leaving town, and he heard like that basically that Diddy and Biggie were not welcome there in LA, and then he turned around to go tell Biggie this. I think I'm telling the story correctly, but I think he turned around. But either way, he told Biggie like, yo, y'all, basically, because Jay Prince is always, he comes from the streets, he's always kind of had his ear to the streets, and he kind of understands street things. And so, telling those stories. And so, talking about how music and the streets are intertwined. And it's funny because I think that the thing that opened my eyes to music and the streets being intertwined, I always think of it as in 2018, a friend of mine named Ghost and this rap artist Kenny Lou got killed in Houston. And it was like, it was like a targeted killing. And like, I think, two shooters, like one came up on either side of the car and it was, whatever. And so that was the kind of thing that made me be like, oh, wow, this rap and the streets, they're very intertwined. And so for me asking him this question, this interview was on October 17th, 2018. And I looked it back up. I guess like Yellow Beezy, his car got shot up October 15th, around that time, October 15th, 2018. And then, it's just interesting to see now. I think that no one doubts the ties between rap and the streets, seeing things like Dolph getting killed, like Mo 3 getting killed. And I'm going to exclude stuff that's a bit more fluky, like Trouble or even King Von to a degree, because that's a little bit more fluky. But as far as like targeted killings where somebody's getting stalked and hunted down and there's money on somebody's head and all that stuff, we've seen a few of those out. Jada Youngin, that's the other one I'm forgetting. Where it's it's not like, because there's a thing where it's like, okay, there's like a takeoff situation, which is sad in and of itself, but it's like people are arguing, somebody starts shooting that, or a chain, a robbery gone wrong. But these things, Jada Youngin, Mo 3, what's it called? Dolph, where it's targeted, right? Like that's when it's really about street issues. Versus something that's also tragic, but like PNB Rock or something, or even XXXTentacion, but those are more kind of fluky, robbery gone wrong type of things. And so it is interesting that even in 2018, that question was on my mind, because now, we see just how deep the streets and hip hop are, even just stuff with like, and I love these artists like Von. Obviously Von, but Dirk, ESTG, 42 Doug, where people around them have gotten either killed, or a lot of people around Dirk gotten killed, or people around them getting incarcerated, or them themselves being locked up like Doug. And so I think there's all sorts of it's really interesting. But anyway, this is just over here rambling, but I hope you enjoy this. It's a dope conversation. The audio is not as good as I'd like it to be, but Jay Prince is a legend. We'll try to get him on this iteration of the podcast, or not this iteration, but this podcast itself. But so here is Jay Prince. You could if this was too long, you could skip through it. But here if this intro is too long, you can skip through it. But here's Jay Prince. All right, hello.
Mic check 1 2. Test the mic 1 2.
All right, so I'm here with the legendary Jay Prince. I'm gonna check in real quick.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is the Zero Cloud podcast, and I can't believe it. I've obviously met this man a few times, but to be able to have him on the show is huge. So what brings you to LA?
Oh man, just promoting the book. Want to see this concert with Drake. Just having a good time.
Yeah, so the book is The Art and Science of Respect. It's been killing the charts, been going crazy. So I just want to talk about a few things. Most people are going to know your story from the book. You came and spoke to Harvard recently. How was that?
Oh, man, I had a ball out there in Harvard, man. It was a lot of smart individuals that really dug into my mind and made me communicate on a different level.
Thank you. I was happy to be able to help set that up with Julia. And the funny thing is, I was worried, because I thought, I went to Harvard and I'm from Houston, but I thought maybe they won't know who's in their presence, you know what I mean? Because you've been in the shadows for a long time. It's just kind of recently that you've come out and, been able to share your gems with the world.
Right.
But they asked some really good questions.
Yeah, they did.
And so today, funny that we were talking today, because Pusha T was on Joe Budden's podcast talking about there's no rules in hip-hop and, this and that, and how he got the information. Do you think, just having been in the middle of a lot of rap beefs, are there rules in hip-hop? Are there rules in rap beef?
Yeah, here's the thing. One can say there's no rules on the street and run the red light if they just choose to, but it's consequences after you run that red light. So you can say there's no rules where hip-hop concerned, but there's consequences, when you cross the different lines where different subject matters are concerned. So, one day you may say there's no rules, and then another day when somebody change your mind that this is some rules, you'll think differently.
Right. And so one thing, there's been some stuff going on in Dallas. I remember I went to a couple of Drake shows. I met Yellow Beezy. He was he was shot up recently, and God bless him, and he survived. But you've been somebody who's been able to stop a lot of violence. Who's been able to stop a lot of beefs. How's that? How did you find yourself in that position?
Well, I think throughout my journey, I given a lot of respect to people, and in return, I earned a lot of respect from people. And then there's been situations where I had to demand my respect from people. And, from people observing, either or all above, put me in a light and in a position where, I'm given respect. And when I speak, people listen to me because they can identify with me in all of those areas.
And so in reading the book, I was just listening to, I keep it in the rotation. I was listening to the chapter you said Car Freak was the first nationwide single. So what, one thing I've been talking to people about is like the highest highs and the lows, right? A lot of the artistic journey, the creative journey, the entrepreneur's journey is filled with highs and lows. So what was kind of some of the lowest point for you when you were, doing this, on this journey?
I think some of the lowest points was the beginning. Because in my mind, I thought that, within a year or two period of time, I would have all of this money, things would pop off, in the entertainment industry for me. And 7 years later, it is when I made my first profit.
Wow.
So, to make a sacrifice that long, when your mindset is thinking 2 years, that was... that was tough.
Here's that quote. They say overnight success takes 10 years. So.
Yeah.
And so you met Tupac a few times, right? What was that like?
Oh, yeah. Pac, the last time I met Pac was in L.A. And he wanted me to go out and party with him that night, because, they was having fun. But my father had just came in from off vacation. And, I wanted to get back to Houston, so I didn't have opportunity to spend that last moment with him. It was like a week or so later when that happened to him.
Wow. And then, you thought about bailing him out, right? Instead of Suge.
Yeah. I was like a week or so away from going up there to try and strike a deal with Pop.
Yeah,
so Suge beat me to the...
That's one thing. The funny thing is, I remember a lot of people say, when people say, who is Jay Prince? Like, oh, he's like, the Suge Knight of the South. But it's really Suge Knight is the Jay Prince of the, it seems like there's a lot of ties between Rap-A-Lot and, Death Row, it seems, right? There's the Smile song, but even it seems like there was you've had, you've met Suge and you've kind of mentored him a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely met him before. Wasn't a whole lot of mentoring going on.
Right.
And he and I are like apples and oranges.
Right, I understand that. And so, you talk about in your book how you translated from the streets to music, and you made your first million in the streets before you even made it in music. So how was it? The street money is fast and it's tax free. So how was it to walk away from that? You talk about the closet, so
Yeah, you have to have a bigger picture in mind. And mine, was wrapped around longevity. So anybody want fast money and the things that go along with fast money, you're embracing a situation where you can have fun for a year, 2, 3, possibly, and then the other flip side of that is a bunch of time or possibly losing your life.
Right.
So anybody that has some sense understand that the two is not on a level playing field.
Right. And it's funny, speaking of that, we're in LA, and I remember in the book you talk about Maxine Waters and how there's a time the Alphabet Boys were trying to just bring you down, and how'd you deal with that? Like going, because a lot of times they could take a black man down without even any evidence, without proof. And so how did you deal with that and the stress of that? You talk about crooked officers trying to put you in a dark spot, and you don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, no, that was a real life challenging moment. It's a hell of a thing to see your name, the United States of America versus you. And the scope of that. But I was able to deal with that, first of all, by my faith. My faith allowed me to not be in bondage with fear in the midst of all of this taking place. So, I always, make a statement, if God be for you, the world could be against you. And he was the only one that was able to bring me out of that.
What's been the most fun you've had on this book tour? You know, you've gone to a lot of cities, talked to a lot of people.
Oh man, the most fun I have is you know, enlightening and inspiring, you know, my brothers who come up to me and say, man, I don't even read, but I'm finna read this story. You know what I mean?
So I saw a Black Youngster. he said something like that almost.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna catch the Drake show tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your relationship like? You know, I've been around you guys a couple times, and it seems very almost like, you know, father son, big brother, little brother type of thing. So how you know, you've guided him and advised him and steered him. How's that been?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a beautiful journey. You know, it's a mutual respect that we have for one another. You know, he listened to me, I listened to him, and we've been able to accomplish some great things together.
You think we'll ever hear that unreleased diss track?
Nah.
It was too vicious.
Nah, we won't do that.
So another thing, you know, being in Houston, I've been around, you know, your kids with Baby J is here, shout out him, and you know, it seems like each of your kids is taking on their own, you know, kind of path and, you know, doing their own thing, and that's what family's all about. So how's that as a father to kind of see, you know, how each of your kids have, you know, Jazz obviously with Drake, and, you know, Junior's got his thing going, and, you know, there's the new wave with, you know, YBN and this and that. So how's that, you know, how's that feel to see your kids take on your, you know, empire like that?
It's a beautiful thing to observe them evolve, you know, in their own uniqueness. So I'm excited about seeing how that flower gonna totally bloom.
Yeah, it's like an episode of Empire.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, do you think? You know, what's next? You know, for Rap A Lot for you?
Well, what's next on the agenda is a movie or a documentary. You know what I mean? Maybe some episodes or something. You know, that's I'd like to accomplish that and taste some of the movie money.
Right. That's you got land too, right? You got investments and island.
Yeah, no, I definitely am invested in quite a bit of land, you know.
Well, so how do you you tell these young rappers? I read a story recently, the Lil Baby, who's, you know, to use your word, buzzing, you know, buzzing very hard. You know, he buys a new outfit, you know, in every on every tour stop. He has like suitcases. And how do you instill in these young rappers, you know, that don't, you know, buy some jewelry if you want, but buy some land too. You know, how do you instill that in them?
Yeah, well, you have to first understand that a fool and his money are soon depart. You know what I mean? And from there, I would advise them to prioritize, you know, their spending. And God not making any more land, so land is a good thing to invest in. You know, why would you have cars and all this jewelry and all
they're
these
making a new
things.
model of the car next year.
Yeah, and don't even have a home. Don't even have something that you can call yours where you can lay your head.
Right.
So they call that ass backwards. So.
Right. So what are you listening to right now?
Oh, I'm listening to the Migos. You know, I think they're one of the best groups that I ever heard, you know, as far as the group is concerned. I'm definitely listening to Drake and the YBN, you know what I mean, Almighty J and Corday and Mir.
Right, they're kind of got situational rap a lot, right? They're, I don't know if it's, management or whatever, but they're kind of,
Rap A Lot, the new wave, we partners with them. It's not management, we partners on masters. And
oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
about owning something. How do you, there's been, recently Marley G, passed away. God bless him and his family.
Yeah.
But how do you, rap music and the streets are so intertwined that sometimes you look at even Biggie, Tupac, these different things. How do you keep things from rising to that level, and then how do you keep people maybe move out of your city, maybe move to a different side of the city? How do you keep people want to be real, but people also need to live long enough to reap the benefit of their
you really have to move with structure. You know what I mean? Definitely artists that make it and become successful on their way. You no longer can move the way you used to move. You have to move with structure, protection, and with a mindset that when I leave home today, my goal is to make it home, safely to my family. You have to be conscious of this because, it's going to always be invitations and different things that's given to you, in clubs and when you're around a lot of people that's drinking and drugging, and you have to be able to think and have people around you that can think to not embrace, foolish invitations.
Yeah, I mean, so that's funny. So you seem like such a calm and cool and collected man. When was the time that you were fearful? You were, there are times I'm in Houston, I started seeing, one person, throw a punch, and, I know that, shots might come any second after that. But you're such a calm and collected person, but I'm sure you've been in some situations. So, were you fearful, or, how does that, how do you feel?
Well, I was more prepared, you know what I mean? I understood if I went to those different places, then I prepared myself before I got there. I had a plan in case this happened, in case this took place. I was in a chess state of mind when I went, beyond danger, because you have to admit and understand that when you go into places where drinking and all of this is going on, the possibilities are high. When you go to strip clubs, you have to face reality and understand that everybody that's committing crime in the city, this is where they meet up.
Right. It's the watering hole.
Yeah.
It's the,
you know what I mean?
It's the town square.
Yeah, if you know that's where you're going, prepare yourself. Or don't go.
That's wise words. So who do you see kind of as the next Jay Prince, or who do you see somebody like I've been on a couple dates of the Drake Amigos tour, and I've been reading stuff like Coach K and P. They seem to be really doing their thing in Atlanta, have an operation there. If somebody wants to become the next Jay Prince, what do they need to do?
You have to be a great follower. In order to become a great leader, you have to be a great follower. So it's a matter of one putting in the time to learn and understand the power of learning, because you can't lead if you don't know nothing.
And when back to the I think the 90s, whenever this stuff was going on with the them trying to do all the FBI and all these people trying to bring you down, they started arresting some people around you and trying and giving them time, even setting them up. And how are you? Were you ever fearful that somebody might try and because of they're in a bad situation, try and because they want they're the feds, they wanted you.
Yeah.
And so to save themselves, try and say that you did something maybe you didn't do, or try and were you ever fearful of that? And how did you
Well, that actually happened. That happened. But the thing is, when you know that you are living right, you're doing right, then fear, it didn't reside in me. You know what I mean? Because I understood what I was doing every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the lie that they was trying to tell and fix or whatnot, where I was concerned, my trust was in God that He wouldn't allow that to, no weapon formed against me to prosper. Right. So, I was at peace with that.
Wow. And so, what was it like, it's funny that, come full circle. I was, so we met, the first time we met, it was at, I think, Engine Room a couple years ago. Drake was on the Summer 16 tour, Houston Appreciation Weekend, and we spoke, and you connected me with this guy, Ant, who I saw in your book, actually, ended up doing some time behind, behind the stuff that they were trying to get you involved in. So, and we were talking about your book at the time, and I remember, so I read Julia Beverly's Pimp C book, and I loved the book, but my favorite parts were about you. And I was like, when you said you're going to do a book, we talked and I tried, toss out some ideas, and I love the title you came up with. So it's great that it's come full circle. What took, that was two and a half years ago. So what took, what was, why now? Why was it now to write the book?
Well, I believe that readers are leaders, and, I wanted to lead by example by, telling my story, writing this book to ignite, a movement. Everybody that ever followed me, know of me, and want to embrace my story, to give them something to work with. You know what I mean?
So now you're in boxing a lot, right? You're pretty heavily in boxing. Would you ever consider getting into MMA as well? It seems like there's a lot of eyeballs on that. You know, Conor McGregor and Khabib just broke the internet.
Yeah, no, I don't have an interest in that right now, and it's simply because the sport is kind of monopolized by the promoters right now. They keeping the buck over the money.
Right. So what do you see? I mean, you seem like a guy who follows the money. So I remember you said something at some point, like the music business, the money's not there like it used to be. And then, you know, you're doing boxing now and you're doing real estate. What do you think, you know, you have, you know, do you think about, you know, like, you know, artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, you know, just like where the future's going to be and, you know, try to get involved in stuff like that?
Yeah, you know, I heard about a lot of those things, but I'm not one that want to try a lot of that stuff. I stick with what work. You know what I mean? If it ain't broke, I don't fix it. So you know, if you know somebody that I trust, you know, introduce me to something that, you know what I mean, that really is making paper, I might place a bet based on my trust for him.
Right, I feel that. Yeah, we need a book of the J. Prince isms. I remember I listened to some of your interviews, and you know, I was born at night, but not last night. Where does all this stuff come from? Where your mother, your father, you know, where? I guess you know your mother. Like where does all these sayings, these jewels?
Well, you know, I always pick up different quotes that mean something to me. So you know, it's over the years, it's just a lot of them that's implanted in me because when I heard them, I kept them and put them in a place. I'm like, okay, that means something.
I got you know, we're about to wrap up in a few minutes. I think 11:30. But you know, would you rather be feared or loved? Because it seems like I remember, you know, growing up in Houston. You know, I grew up in A-Leaf. I didn't grow up in the Third Ward. But you know, I would hear, you know, stories. You know, it's like you're the boogeyman. You know, like people don't want to cross you, and so there's an element of fear, there's an element of love, and obviously between that there resides respect. But you know, between fear and love, what would you choose?
Yeah, definitely love. You know, I think love is stronger than all, but love and respect, I like them over fear.
I feel that. And so the respect that you've built, I mean, not a lot of people, I remember, you know, a couple years ago, Steve Francis got his chain snatched. And you kind of just said, you know, Steve Francis is a friend of mine. And, you know, how many hours later was the chain back in your hand?
It didn't take long. You know, yeah, I meant that. You know, he's a friend, and I was glad the guys, you know, respected that he was a friend, and you know, that's like $100,000, $80,000-$70,000 chain.
Oh wow, I didn't even know it was that. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well. What else? What's anything you want to promote or talk about? Obviously the book.
Yeah, definitely the book. We definitely been talking about that, but you know, after that, I'm like really focused on the movie side of things. You know, I think it's gonna be a great movie.
It's gonna be amazing. Do you have a director in mind, or do you have, you know, movies that you've kind of seen that you know, The Godfather, Goodfellas, the NWA movie, you know, that you've seen that you kind of envision or like?
Yeah, no, I love the Godfather. I love Scarface. You know, I was once him and I evolved into the Godfather. So.
I like that. Yeah. From Tony Montana to Michael Corleone, or Vito Corleone even.
Right.
Yeah, no, I like that. Well, yeah, I'm sure whatever you touch seems to turn to gold. Whatever jazz touches, you know, your whole family, it seems, what you touch turns to gold. So I'm sure the movie will be amazing. And the funny thing about the movie is it could be 5 movies. You know what I mean? There's the Rap-A-Lot kind of early, you know, with the, you know, starting Rap-A-Lot.
Right.
You know, there's the kind of Elder Statesman era. There's the Drake, you know. So I mean, it could be a whole miniseries.
A lot of episodes.
A lot of episodes. Yeah.
So I'm kind of, when I think about it, it's gonna be hard to tell the movie in 3 hours, 2 hours. So
yeah, you have to take a bit of it, or you know, make it, you know, almost like a real, you know, Power but real, you know, Empire but real, you know, and then you know, hopefully, hopefully I can help write an episode. You know, it's like I've written more comedy, Blackish, and The Simpsons and stuff, but you know, we'll you know.
Oh, cool. Yeah, for sure. That's what you do, huh?
Yeah. Okay. That's actually how I met. So I met Julia. I read her book, and I was like the Pimp C book, and there were all these nuggets I had no idea about Pimp C, and it really made me dive deep. I went back and listened to Riding Dirty. I listened to Riding Dirty, but I went back and listened to the Show Me Something Good. All the whole UGK discography.
Right. And
I read the chapters about you, and I was like, oh, this has to be a book. This has to be a movie. And so that's kind of how we linked up a couple years ago.
Right.
But I developed a thing with Kevin Durant for HBO, and then another thing with Wayne Barrow and Sasha Jenkins at Mass Appeal, a TV show based on Biggie Smalls, his childhood and his life.
Right.
But neither of those, they develop a whole bunch of things, and then they pick one, and so. But yeah, so it's a beautiful thing, and it's 80 degrees in Los Angeles, and we're here with the Godfather, the King himself. And one last thing before we go, you rap a little bit. So you got a big smile on.
Man.
So I used to listen to Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster. I know all the verses, and I just found out maybe a couple months ago that damn it feels good to be a gangster, getting voted into the White House. So you rap a little bit.
Yeah, I used to spit a little bit.
you decided no more?
No, that ain't for me.
No, I feel you. Rather write the checks.
I like listening to it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time, man. I might see you tonight at the show.
Okay.
See you around Houston, and I look forward to watching the movie on the big screen.
Hey, man, appreciate the time, bro.
For sure.
Oh,
right, man. That's the Zero Cloud episode 4 or 5 with the Godfather himself.
Oh yeah.
All right, so that was Jay Prince. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. What else might share? All the engagement verbs. Make sure you do those. And shout out to Jay Prince. Shout out to the whole, Houston Mob Ties movement.